Welcome back to Arry The Stag. TR Tony here. Now, this week, as promised last week, we're going to give you the full lowdown on the oil pressure issue that we had with Arry The Stag. It had a flickering oil light. It was driving us crazy after we put the new engine and gearbox in, and had me, Alan and Budgie all totally confused, and it befuddled us for weeks, if not months, and likely was going to cost us a fortune. Incidentally, we have solved the problem, and if you want to know just how much it cost us, watch till the very end and I'll reveal all. Suffice to say, we were very worried it was going to cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds, and have to have another engine out job. However, now after much detective work and anxiety, we finally worked out it could well be something to do with the oil pressure relief valve. We didn't know quite what it was, but we thought it would be something in there. Now, for those that don't know, the oil pressure relief valve is situated right down the bottom of the engine. You can just see it there, that kind of brass-looking nutted thing, right next door to the oil filter, which we've got on our Eddy. This is on the near side in the UK. Obviously, you've got your sender just above that, which goes to the switch on the dash and just shows you the light flickering, which was our problem all the way through. All went back nicely as an engine and all tickety-boo, but this light was flickering and driving us crazy. Now, to get to the root cause, I'm going to take the thing out the car and just show you exactly what was going on. Alright guys, so we've seen the location of this oil pressure relief valve in the car on the block. I was showing you that a little while ago. So that's the exterior. That's the bit that we were looking at earlier on that sticks into the engine. I think the other one was a bit more brassy. This one's been painted. It's been removed from the car, obviously. Basically, it's got an oil kind of resistant metal washer there. So that's obviously to stop any leaks out the side. It screws into the block like so. And inside we have, if I can find it, a little plunger. And here is the plunger. And the function of this with a spring around it, which is just here. I can just grab that for a second. There's the spring. The spring goes over the plunger like so. It's a bit like a bicycle pump, I suppose, really. Very simple, and locates actually into the oil pressure relief valve there. So if you imagine it's actually in the block now, and at the moment blocking the oil dropping back down to the sump. Once it gets up to a certain pressure, there is a defined pressure over which it starts to compress, and it's quite a push. I might have to push it right down physically with two hands. You can see there. You can just see there, pushing it right down. So it opens and closes based on the strength of that spring and the oil pressure at the other end of this, allowing oil through to drop to the sump, or keeping it blocked so that the oil goes up back into the engine, and thus keeping the oil pressure to the right PSI that we desire. Now, what Alan and others and Budgie had tried to do first was to get a new oil pressure relief valve, which they did. In fact, they tried two and had exactly the same result as before. It wasn't working. We had the flickering oil light going and it not working properly. In the end, they went and saw the guys at Southern Triumph Services in Christchurch. I'll leave the link in the description below if you want to talk to them. Font of all knowledge, they are there, and they said that they should get a heavier duty oil pressure relief valve, which when it boils down to it, as it turns out, it was simply the length of this spring. And I'll show you what they tried to do as an interim fix before that. Alan decided and had heard that you could use washers to some extent on the back end of this plunger. Now, there's not a good outcome with this. It's not recommended, and I'm not recommending. I'm just showing you what they actually did, because if you put a couple of washers in there, you can see that the spring is slightly further down the shaft than it was if you take them off, both off, without them. So that's basically the difference. Now, the reason you shouldn't do that is because when the car heats up, and you've got a couple of spring washers or washers on there, you actually restrict the movement, and you can actually blow the engine. I've heard that either the oil filter or something goes in the engine if you're doing that, because you're restricting the flow. What the final solution was, and this is the outcome of what happened, and this isn't it, was a new heavier duty oil pressure relief valve that had a spring that literally came a bit further there. It was about 2 or 3 winds of the coil of the spring further, so it had a little bit more give, a little bit more tensile strength, and literally the difference was it gave a bit more oomph on this plunger, so it required a bit more effort to push it back into the recess of the oil pressure relief valve, and that was literally all it was. If you can imagine, it's a bit like a kind of circulation system in a human being. You've got your heart, which is the oil pump, pumping the oil up to the top of the engine where it needs to be in the galleys and around the crankshafts and the camshafts in particular, top end of the engine, the rockers and all of that. Needs pressure to get up to the top there. As it drops back down, the pressure reduces. So it's arteries and veins for me in many ways. So the arteries are from the pump up to the top of the engine, the veins are dropping back down, and this measures the pressure of that oil and therefore the resistance. So a certain pressure, getting too pressured, it will push in and let more oil back into the sump. And this was the issue. It was being too easy to let that, it was getting too, the spring was too soft such that it was letting oil back through this valve when it really shouldn't have done. And that's why we were getting the flickering. So it's something that I think the guys have flagged. The guys at Christchurch knew of this issue, would strongly recommend an uprated oil pressure relief valve in this engine and 2000 engines and all the engines that you guys use in other models of Triumph, because it's a very common problem. Many people said it could be because of crud in here and oil and dirt and carbon, and that can have the same effect, i.e. blocking that plunger movement, which I'm really having to push hard, as you can see there. But that was what it all boiled down to. So such a simple little thing, and yet such a frustrating thing to get to, that, as I promised, I said I'd share with you guys worldwide, because if you're struggling with oil pressure, flickering lights, then do have a think about this, rather than trying to take the engine out, which we were seriously thinking of doing at one point, and having a forensic analysis of the bottom end and seeing what the problem was. Actually, all it came down to was the size of this spring and it not being man enough to push back on the required pressure enough such that we were dropping oil pressure. How daft is that? But I hope that's helped people worldwide, despite the anxiety and stress and all the worry that we've had with Eddie. We're now planning to go out with her tomorrow to a car show, so hopefully we'll be able to record some of that and update you on the channel. But that's it, guys. That's the oil pressure relief valve. Get a high pressure one, or heavier duty one rather. And also, just to add on, the guys also recommended a slightly different oil filter to allow more oil through, and the two combined worked wonders. Do not be tempted to try the age-old one of sticking a couple of washers on this to get around it. It will work temporarily, but as soon as your car warms up and you get increased pressure, then there's a good chance you can blow something. So don't be tempted to do that. And just to add here that the oil filter that the guys chose to use was this one. We've got the adapter plate on the engine, but this is the oil spin-on filter that was used. It's the code there, so if anybody else wants to do the same thing worldwide, that's the man filter that we chose, and helps the oil move around the engine a little bit more freely than it did. So that, combined with the oil pressure relief valve adaptation, made all the difference. Happy days. And just to completely finish off, to hit you with the full bill for oil filter and oil pressure relief valve, we're talking a total of nearly £13. It could have been hundreds, if not thousands, had we dared to take the engine out and rebuild it yet again. 13 quid is all it cost. Happy days. Well done, Alan. Well done, Budgie. And thanks to Southern Triumph Services for saving our bacon.
Now, if you enjoyed this video, then watch this video and see more from Arry the Stag. Feel free to join us on a weekend, and please feel free to like, share and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you online on Arry the Stag very soon. Cheers for now. Bye.